The Viltrox 16mm f1.8 packs a punch and it comes in at a very affordable price. So where's the catch? Welcome back. Fast super wide-angle lenses are not the most common type of lenses that you can find around. They usually are big, heavy, expensive, and typically super specialized. This Viltrox 16mm f1.8 is a full-frame lens that comes for Sony E mount and Nikon Z mount, which happens to be the version that I have. It is relatively big and heavy because it's definitely not small, but it's not huge and it's not super heavy. And it only costs around $550, $600, even less when they come in with their usual 20% promotion in like days like Prime Days and stuff like that. So it is a much more affordable lens than you would expect. On paper, this is basically a wide-angle photographer's dream. It is built really well, it's all metal, it is weather sealed, it accepts 77mm filter on the front, which is not that typical. Lenses like this tend to have a bulbous front element that doesn't allow you to use filters with ease. This is not, this is a flat and allows to use your typical screw-in filters, and it has plenty of controls. From the focusing ring to the declickable aperture ring, from the autofocus monofocus switch to the two function buttons that you have on the barrel, to end with a display that shows a lot of information and it can be also customized for the initial animation once you turn the camera on. Now for me the screen isn't particularly useful, but that is my way of using the lens. I am not an astrophotographer. Probably an astrophotographer finds that pretty useful because it gives you an easier way to check some of your settings, mainly probably the focus set point. That is really important. So again, for me, it may look like a gimmick, but again, this lens costs less than $600. Even if it's a gimmick, you're not paying that much for it, and for some, this may be useful. So for that price, there isn't much more that we can ask from a lens like this. Also, the autofocus is really good, although yes, I've missed some shots, but as I always say when I'm reviewing Nikon Z mount lenses, I'm rocking a pretty old Z7, not the best autofocusing camera in the world, and I've missed focus with all the lenses that I've used with the Z7, so it's hard for me to blame it on the lens. I tend to blame it on the camera more than on the lens. But even then, even considering the shots that I've missed, there were not that many. So all in all, not a bad performance in the autofocus, even with an old camera like this Z7 at all. So I can confidently say the autofocus with this lens is fast, accurate, and it's gonna get you what you need without any particular issue. So you may think this must be an awful optical lens to justify the very affordable price. And you couldn't be more wrong. The lens is actually really good optically too. Viltrox has learned how to make these lenses affordable yet very high performance. They're doing stuff that no one else is doing at that same price. This lens is very sharp, wide open at f1.8, with just a little bit of softness in the extreme corners, which is something you should expect. And it gets better as you stop down, and once you get to f5.6, the lens is basically perfect corner to corner. Vignetting is pretty visible at f1.8, which is normal for super wide-angle fast lenses. And as you stop down, the lens gets better and better, and once you get to f4, you don't have to worry about vignetting. Even shooting against the sun, the lens performs really well unless you're shooting a specific angles where the flare and the Gaussing become pretty visible, but outside of those specific angles, the lens performs really, really well. And this is important. For a super wide angle lens like this, you are going to have the sun or a bright source of light in your picture a lot of times. Being f1.8, you can definitely play with depth of field. Of course, you can blur the background. The closer you get to the foreground, the more blurred the background is going to be. Now, this is not going to be the creamiest of the bokeh that you can find around, but remember, this is a super wide angle lens, so it's not made for that specifically. But it's smooth enough, and it gets you enough flexibility to play with your subject and get pretty dramatic shots. Now, all of that sounds great, and it looks like this lens has no flaws, but I already mentioned the lens gets at its best, it gets perfect basically at a 5.6. The issue is once you get past a 5.6, once you get beyond that, the lens starts to suffer dramatically from diffraction. I have never seen something like that happen, but already at f8 you lose something. Once you get to f11, you have lost a lot of sharpness. The f16, the lens becomes unusable, totally soft, to the point where I was struggling to understand whether it was a focusing issue or a lens sharpness issue. Now, the impact of this behavior on your picture is totally going to depend on the way you use and you plan on using the lens. I am not an astrophotographer, so I don't tend to shoot landscape wide open. I would do it for like northern lights and stuff like that, but I live in Sicily, in Italy. That is not a thing. And so if it happens one every so often when I travel. But most of the time, I'm not using this lens wide open for landscapes. When it comes to landscape, I'm using this lens stop down. Any wide angle lens, I tend to use f11, f16 a lot because I love the sun stars. I love slowing down the shutter speed and maybe having some movement in the water or stuff like that. So for me, the impact of that behavior is pretty dramatic. On the other hand, if you're shooting for the most part wide open or you don't have to go anywhere beyond f8, this lens is going to serve you perfectly. This is perfect for indoor shooting. This is perfect for events. This is perfect for astrophotography. I guess I'm not an astrophotographer, so I cannot intelligently speak about that. So I'm gonna leave it at that. But for wide aperture usage, for normal usage scenario when you don't need more than 5.6 f8, it's hard to get any better than this lens if you want a fast, super wide angle lens. So to wrap this video up, this lens is absolutely great for its price. There's nothing that gets close to this lens at the same price point, especially on the Nikon Z mount, because in Sony E mount, Sony has recently released a 16 f1.8 that is smaller, more lightweight. It's a very good lens, but it's still more expensive than this, but not by a huge margin. But aside from that specific lens, anything else is going to cost you a lot more. And depending on how important a lens like this is in your normal usage, you may not be willing to spend that much. For 500, 600 bucks, this lens gets you incredible results. The only caveat, as I mentioned already, is the diffraction kicking in that early. If that is a problem for you, don't buy this lens. If that is not a problem for you, then this lens is absolutely a must get because it's just a great lens. Now, for me, given the way I shoot, as I already mentioned, I will sell this lens and I will use my Sony 16 to 25 millimeters on my Nikon Z7 through the Megadap adapter for when I need something like that on my Nikon camera. That's because for the stuff I do, that lens has a behavior that serves me better. But again, that is me. That is my behavior, my way of shooting. It doesn't mean that yours is going to be the same. So my decision can be 100% different from yours, and they will both be great decision anyways. Anyways, that's it for today. I hope you liked this video. Ciao, grazie, and I'll see you in the next one.